You're listening to Robin Flan's Drummer Interviews, the #1 drum radio show in all of Los Angeles,
the world, the galaxy.
Hi, this is Robin Flans with Robin Flans Drummer Interviews, and I'm sitting here with my producer and cohort, Ed Eblin.
Welcome, everybody.
And it's getting closer to the holidays, and so that's happy, and it can be a little stressful. So I suggest it is time for a relaxing time out, and that we all sit back and listen to an interview with today's guest, the distinguished and notable Todd Sucherman. And as most of you know, Todd has been holding down the STYX fort since 1990. And, well, you know, he could be just resting on those busy laurels, but instead, he has become one of the most in-demand clinicians. He's given us an incredible instructional DVD series, Methods and Mechanics, which has won awards, many awards, and maintains a relevancy and consistency that, you know, only someone who's constantly striving can make that happen. So, you know, enough of me. I want to jump right in. And, well, Todd, welcome.
Hey, Robin, thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed your interviews for years and years, so it's the pleasure is all mine.
Well, no, the pleasure is really mine, and it's been hard to get you to have this pleasure of mine because you are so darn freaking busy. So I want to jump right in and talk about the choices you've made in your playing style, because you know, you've said that, you know, you can have a successful career playing great time and making, you know, good musical choices with a limited amount of technique, but you have made the choice as a drummer to really hone technique. And I wonder why that was important to you and at what point you made that choice.
Wow, that's a great question right off the bat. I mean, I think growing up in being a little kid and seeing Buddy Rich on television or on The Tonight Show had a very strong impact on me, as well as loving jazz drummers. And I would sit in my diapers and Mickey Mouse record player and listen to Chicago 2 over and over again with Danny Serafin. So those drummers made a very strong impact in my absolute earliest memories of life. So I think that I was maybe naturally drawn to that type of thing. And I remember my father, who was not a technical drummer. He was like a Dave Tuff type of, you know, timekeeper guy, although he had the most beautiful buzz roll I've ever seen anybody do. You know, whenever Buddy played, you know, he would just marvel at the left hand. He'd say, oh, look at that left hand. So that was always something that stuck with me, you know, like I said, since my earliest memories, to do that. And not to jump to the later part of my career. I'm right now I'm enjoying playing such simple things for recording sessions and singer-songwriter stuff that I'm loving sort of the antithesis of everything that I had strive to do.
But then that begs to question. So, but the foundation, I mean, so how much of, again, you know, that becomes the vocabulary. And do you have to have the vocabulary in order to write sort of the script? I mean, do you need the vocabulary to be simple? I mean, do you have to have that to leave that behind? Do you know what I'm asking?
I mean, you know, the more you know, the more you know. But then sometimes that could be dangerous ammunition in the wrong hands, because everything comes down to a choice. I mean, if you look at a guy, okay, let's take two of the biggest, you know, groove gods gods of all time. You take Gadd and Porcaro. Both guys could play 2 and 4 like nobody's business. Vinnie Colaiuta too.
Mm-hmm.
All three of those guys, the technique that was at their disposal that they would choose to employ or not employ, was massive, mighty.
Right.
They had an arsenal that was bottomless. So it's really hard to say. Because
well, I was going to ask you that. I mean, do you at a certain point can too much technique get in the way? I mean, do you have to make, can that be? Do you have to learn to sort of taper that? Can it be something that you have to learn to sort of get, yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, yes. Well, I mean, again, every person's journey is different, but I think that with experience, because there's no experience like experience, and playing music and recording music with other musicians, I think that in time and as one matures, that those choices become clearer and much easier. Someone who's, 21, 24, 26 might feel that they have an awful lot to prove, and they're going to make their mark. And if they get a call to play on a record that, maybe some people are going to hear, maybe there can be a little bit too much youthful exuberance or trying to make your mark.
Right.
And I feel sometimes when I hear things that I've done in my early past, I can hear that maybe wasn't the best choice, or saying nothing at that point would have been greater than sort of opening up my mouth and letting the world know how excited I was to be there.
Right. So less is
speak.
more. I mean, less can really be more. I mean, isn't that the old adage?
I mean, I had one of the greatest learning experiences that I ever had. I want to say this was maybe 92, 93. I got called to play on a country record, and I mean, this isn't like rock country. This is like really? Type of stuff, right?
Mm.
And I was the only dude that was not like a Nashville guy, right? Even though we were recording in Chicago. And I thought, this is going to be great. This is going to be easy. I'm booked for a couple days. This will be easy money, and this will be cool. I get to play with some of these other guys. By the first tune, a playback, I'm going, I suck.
Wow.
I'm the problem here. Everybody's doing the real deal shit here, and I'm nailing it with the click track, but why does it feel stiff, or why does it feel like the chorus speeds up?
So can you elaborate? I mean, what really sucked, Todd? It didn't feel good, and nobody in the control room, no one's heads were bobbing, no high fives, no side looks like, yes, this is great. It was like a bunch of people were watching open heart surgery, and it wasn't going very well. I was the problem. And so what did you do?
What did I do in my young 20-something-year-old was I started going through the Rolodex of what can I do with the time? How can I play? Okay, it seems like the chorus speeds up, even though when I asked the engineer to solo the drums with the click track, I'm bearing it. But it feels like the tempo picked up. Mm-hmm. So I'm going, okay, when it hits the chorus, I need to lay further back. Or normally you might lay further back in the verse and then maybe get on the middle or on top for the chorus to give it a sense of excitement. But this was not a surge that this particular track needed. So thankfully, I don't remember exactly what I did because it was in moments of absolute terror and thinking, I'm going to get fired here, and I'm like the kid. I'm the one guy that's like not in the Nashville club here. I'm kind of the one guy that doesn't belong, and I'm getting my ass kicked out of here after this tune. But whatever adjustments I made, it worked, and I ended up playing 9 out of 11 songs on that record. Of course, when the record came out, it said drums, Eddie Bayers, Lonnie Wilson, Todd Sucherman. Damn it.
Yeah, who is that guy?
Yeah, I'm like, well, this is good. This isn't going to further my career one bit. But, well, I guess it did, though, because it really was a colossal learning experience, and here I am talking about it, 26, 27 years later.
Yeah. It was. I'm sure it was a great learning experience. Well, country. You know what? Country music. People think it's like a walk in the park, but it's not such a walk in the park. And just like people think ballads are a walk in the park, not so.
Nope. Yeah. No. They are a thing of beauty unto themselves, and if you're not fully immersed into making it feel the way that it's supposed to feel, you will stick out like a sore thumb, as I did in the example I just spoke about. Mm-hmm. So I had to get it together really, really quickly and salvage the job. And that's, as a session musician, that's what you have to do sometimes if something's not happening, and all of a sudden you realize that it's you that's the problem.
Well, it's really good that you were able to make the adjustment on the job. I mean, that you were so quick to be able to figure it out on the job. I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you weren't quite able to make an adjustment on a job?
Yeah, actually, you're pulling this one out of me. I worked for a dear friend of mine who had some success, and it was the most sort of unprofessional situation that I ever put myself in. I went back to Chicago, and I went out with some friends, and I was in really bad shape the next day. And I know that I let him down, and they had to Pro Tool the hell out of my performance. And I had to apologize and tell him that he's not paying me for the session. What? And he's never called me since. So that was a very, again, in my 20s, a learning experience that
what went wrong?
That haunts me.
What went wrong?
I was out drinking until about 4 o'clock in the morning the night before.
Oh.
And I came in, it was a very unprofessional thing to do. And it was a guy who I, would be the type of guy I would go out drinking with till 4 o'clock in the morning. But I didn't go drinking with him. I went drinking with other people, and then went into his session, and I was just, it was a really hard piece of music. It was a hard feel, and for whatever reason, with their programming and playing with the weird drum kit and the weird pedal, because I flew in, and you know what I mean? And I can't say, oh, well, the bass drum pedal sucks, and the bass drum, the kit's weird. How weak would that would have been,
Uh-huh.
So I own the fact that I made a mistake that I've never made since, and would never make again.
Another learning experience.
Yeah, that was an adjustment I couldn't make. I thought I was young and invincible, and this is no problem. But that is a rare tale that I've pretty much never told, and now I've told it publicly.
Well, you know what? That's such a good thing that you told that, because it is such a good thing for people to know, and I don't think there's very many people who haven't done that and need to own it, because I think everyone's done it, Todd.
Yeah, I mean the funny thing is the track sounds great. They just had to Pro Tool the hell out of me, but it's a great sounding track.
Wow.
All's well that ends well, I suppose. But there was. I mean, can I tell another story on this vein of making an adjustment that was an eye-opener for me?
Do.
I was recording a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, up in Toronto, and I was. This is a story that I tell at clinics sometimes if this comes up, but I was called in to replace another drummer, and so the track was basically done. Full vocals, full guitars, and everything that the music told me, all the instruction that I got from this piece of music was that it was like Foo Fighters meets Queen, anthemic, Quadrophenia era, The Who, and they liked the part that the drummer played. They just wanted it kind of better and stronger and a bit more of a groove. So I went out there and I beat the hell out of the drums in a Foo Fighters, Queen, quadrophenia sort of way. And when I came back in and listened, again, not much celebration, no heads bobbing, no high fives from anybody. And again, the Rolodex is going in through my mind, going, why is this not right? It's kind of like a hamburger from a hospital. It will get you through the night, but it's not a delicious meal. There's sustenance here, but it's not. There's no love cooked in that hospital hamburger, right? So I had just seen on YouTube some video footage of Dave Maddox recording with XTC and the Non-Such record, which is one of my favorite records of all time. And Dave's playing on that record is sublime. And Dave was not whacking the drums very hard at all, but the drums sounded huge, such a beautiful sound. And I thought, you know what? Let me try this. And I told the engineer, I said, bring all the faders back, bring all the levels back. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play, much quieter than I did. So I went out there, did one pass, playing significantly, like if it was 50% less impact. And when I went into the control room, we're listening back, everyone's heads are bobbing, there's high fives, the drums sounded twice as big. You could hear the snares rattle on the snare drum, and the tom sounded bigger. The cymbals were more oceanic and had a bigger impact. And for some reason, some of the guitar lines stuck out more. They all looked at me like, what did you do? The difference is astronomical.
Interesting.
And I'm in my mind, I'm trying to be cool here. Like, oh yeah, well, I thought it sounded a little bit bigger. But in my mind, I'm going, whew, that saved the friggin' day.
Interesting. Well, I think that's just, and that's really speaks to the fact that they had the faith in you to be able to come up with another idea. I mean, that's the other part, that when a producer allows the drummer to have the idea, sometimes that works. I mean, that's important for them to have the trust in the musician to figure it out.
Well, thankfully it did, because again, if I hadn't come up with something, it would have been a movie called The Long Ride Home, starring Todd Sucherman.
So with that one, we're going to take a pause for the cause and be right back with a new ride back.
If you could design your own drum practice pad, what would it feel like? At ePad, our EnduraFlex practice surface was perfected to eliminate extreme bounce and unrealistic rebound. The benefits of ePad include quiet playing surface and shock-resistant properties that help reduce the risk of stress-related injuries. ePad offers the perfect feel and energy return for developing speed, endurance, and control. You will meet the challenge of the weaker hand with ePad. Warm up with our knee pads, tabletop practice pads. Warming up on ePads provides a natural transition from practice pad to drum set. At ePad, we know the need for speed, control, and endurance. Get your chops together with ePad's EnduraFlex playing surface. Practicing with ePads builds your finger, wrist, and forearm strength and helps you gain better control and endurance. Into feel? Well, ePads replicate the response and feel of a real drum. Our Pro Deluxe knee pad is portable, convenient, and lightweight. Perfect for the beginner, intermediate, or pro touring drummers. Find out why our products are a must-have. ePad, your source for high-quality drum set practice pads and accessories.
You're listening to Robin Flan's Drummer Interviews on Spreaker.com.
And we're back. Be sure to check those pads out at epadco.com. That's epadco.com. I want to take a minute to say thanks to all the new friends listening and contacting me on Facebook, like Richard, James, Stephen, and Victor. And so, Todd, I want to just jump back in time a little bit. So you've talked a lot about your early days and how you developed or devoured everything you could in 1 year at Berkeley. Did you know going into that you could only be there for 1 year?
Yes, my parents had split, and there was some financial hardships, and it was like 14, 15 grand in 1987 money, which was which is a lot back then, and so yeah, I knew pretty much it was just going to be one year, which was 2 semesters, and that was going to be it. So I had to make the most of it.
But you knew that somehow that was going to be important to you. Why? Why was that so important to you?
Well, I think when I was in high school, say 14, 15 years old, I had always imagined that I would graduate high school, throw the drums in a car, and drive out to Los Angeles, and the rest would be history. And then I started to realize that maybe life isn't quite like that, and that maybe I needed even more experience than the experiences that I was definitely lucky to have come my way back then. So, being that I was, a huge fan of Steve Smith for my whole life, and Vinny Colaiuta, right behind him, I thought maybe going to where they went to school, and then trying to maybe see if I could get in with Gary Chafee, who had a very long 6-month to a year waiting list. So that was sort of the plan. And, maybe part of it was prolonging the inevitable of, you've just been in school your whole life, and now it's time to sink or swim. Maybe part of that was let's keep that do or die situation at bay for another year and try and gather and garner more experience, more information. And I'm really glad that I did, because some of the friendships that I made there are guys I'm still friends with today. Teachers like Ian Froman and Skip Hayden, and then of course Gary Chafee. What I learned from these 3 very different wonderful players and educators, I think helped me when I was able to sit down and spend a year or 2 digesting so much information. I think it was a wise choice, and I'd do it again if I had to.
Had you already had a big foundation or a clear knowledge on odd times and such?
Yeah, I think growing up in the age of rock and jazz fusion, we are what we practice, and we are what we're lucky enough to be exposed to by other musicians, or in my case, I had 2 older brothers that were musicians, 5 and 7 years older, respectively. So I might have been listening to Rush Moving Pictures, and then my brother might come in and go, "Hey, check out Terry Bozzio with UK," and I put on these UK records, and then all of a sudden the Rush were moved aside, and okay, what's going on here? And then when I heard Tony Williams, I was probably mid high school. I'm kind of embarrassed that I got hit to him so late, but when I remember the first time I heard "Believe It," it was probably maybe 1984. I'm like, oh, okay, this is where Vinny and Steve get this. This is the guy. This is where they get their stuff from.
Yeah.
Tony was the Big Bang, as it were, and then of course there's the players that came before him that made him who he was. So it's always fun to go back and see where this information came from.
Sure.
But yeah, I was for me, man, I was so lucky that I came from a musical family.
Yeah.
That was supportive, and that I got to gig with older musicians through my brothers who were gigging with musicians, and they pulled me into the situation. So there's not a lot of situations that exist for musicians today, sadly, that was like my summer gig, which was up in a resort hotel in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, playing 6 nights a week, dance sets, playing shows, playing comedians, jugglers, reviews, singers, And, the comedians would come in with these books with charts from the 40s, 50s, and 60s with notation on there. And I would have to sight read with older guys. And I did that 6 nights a week from the age of 13 to 19.
Fantastic.
And when I tell that story, that sounds like an old-timey story because I guess it is now.
Yeah.
That type of thing I don't know where that exists for musicians to cut their teeth and have a gig like that.
That's a great experience. I mean, that had to set the tone for so much for you.
Well, that was in a way really the greatest education I ever had, even eclipsing Berkeley, because there's no experience like experience, and that's on the job training. And if I'm playing some sort of swing time and I'm sucking, and I got some 55-year-old sax player turning around and looking at me.
Yep.
Okay, I know I'm doing something wrong, or don't do that.
Yep. Yep. So what kind of musical situation were you actually picturing for yourself? I mean, what were you thinking?
I don't know. I didn't have a clear idea, but I knew that if I had tried to groom myself with versatility, that I would be able to keep my schedule full as a working musician if I could play this type of music with these folks and this type of music with those folks. Instead of concentrating on one musical genre or putting all my eggs in one basket with a band, trying to get the big record deal and get all famous and stuff. I just wanted to play good music with good musicians. And I had the notions, from other musicians and from my father about being on time and being reliable, having the right tools for the job, leaving people happy that you were there. If you, that's where most musicians screw up, by the way. If they don't put all those things together.
Yep.
You have to be on time. You have to show up with the right tools. You have to be prepared. Nail the gig. Leave everybody happy that you were there.
Absolutely.
And if you can put those things together, you're subbing for a guy. You got called in a situation, and you go in, and now you're meeting 4 or 5 musicians, and then all of a sudden the keyboard player goes, "Hey, what are you doing Tuesday nights?"
Yep.
I'm like, "Well, nothing."
Yep.
Well, I got this thing. My guy's going on the road, and we have a steady. Do you want to do something? Yes. Now all of a sudden, you take that same business work ethic, and you're meeting 3, 4, 5 other guys there. You do the same thing. That's how you end up filling your schedule as a working musician.
Absolutely. But what was the dream? I mean, what was your dream?
I think the dream was I wanted to do equal parts recording sessions and be in some sort of rock band. So I mean, I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to do both. But it's you ask any musician this. The grass can be greener. If you spend too much time in the studio, you're going to want to get out and play live and see a bit of the world.
Right.
And if you're traveling too much and you're missing home, you kind of wish that you could just be at home and do some sessions there. So, like anything, it's about finding the balance.
Yep.
So that's what I try to do, or try to remind myself of if I'm feeling, like I just finished up 100 shows, and I just flew 30,000 miles in the last 2.5 weeks. Back and forth to Europe within 9 days of each other, doing clinics and drum camps, flying back, doing 2 shows with a band, going up to Wisconsin, doing two clinics. And, if I'm feeling tired or jet lagged, I have to remind myself that, well, I sort of did this to myself.
Yep. It was what you asked for. Yep.
I chose this life. So, I'm going to do it with as much of a smile as I possibly can, well, at least while I'm awake, that is.
So when STYX came along, I mean, I know it was a great situation, but you came in under some sort of tough circumstances. I mean, John was sick, and he ultimately passed away. I mean, that had to be like a sad time. I mean, a hard time.
Well, yeah, it was certainly something that was sort of a trial by fire in a way. I mean, the first time they called me was 1995 to sort of ghost drum for John, who, it was explained to me wasn't in the best health. And I didn't consider it much. I mean, I've been called in to do wacky things like that before, so it was exciting for me to go in and play on the re-recording of the song Lady for the Greatest Hits record that came out in, I think it maybe came out in 96 or maybe late 95. And then they called me again in February of 96 to do another song that was going to be on Greatest Hits Volume 2 that was going to be coming out. And they were much more sort of, not that they weren't chummy before, but there was something had changed. There was a seismic shift insofar as them asking me questions about myself and where did you grow up and sort of a getting to know you thing. And I thought, something's brewing here.
Mm-hmm.
And in my memory, at least, it was maybe 2 or 3 days after that session that James Young called me and offered me the summer tour, saying, hey, we're going out this summer. John is in ill health and can't really do it. The gig is still his if he gets better, but would you be interested in doing it? And I thought, I hadn't done a full big tour like that at that point. And I thought, how could I say no to this? So, I said yes, and I wasn't intimidated in any way because I'd had the records growing up. I'd seen the band 3 times as a kid growing up. I knew
you were a
the
fan.
live album, and I knew the live endings. And then we got together for rehearsals. And no one remembered how the songs ended, and I was kind of teaching them the endings, and that became the big joke. Like, hey, ask the kid. Anytime they didn't know anything, ask the kid.
So you were a fan.
Yeah, I mean, being a Chicago boy, they were a Chicago band, so they were on the radio all the time. You couldn't escape them. And my brothers and I played, a few of the songs in bands that we were in the late 70s and early 80s. And, it was all sort of the pantheon of, STYX, Journey, REO Speedwagon, whatever, that sort of, great melodic rock of the 70s and early 80s, amongst many other things that my brothers and I loved and adored.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was the first time was, you can only have your first time once.
So when you played with them for the first time in concert, I mean, what was that like, sitting behind the drums and in a big? I mean, I'm assuming it was a big concert.
Yeah, I can tell you. It was May 21st, 1996 at the Five Seasons Center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We walk in, and Kansas was opening up that tour, and we hadn't met any of those guys yet. And we walk in, and they're playing Point of No Return, and the whole stadium is just jumping.
Wow.
It's like a small hockey rink, probably 10, 11,000 people, sold out. And I felt my heart start to race when we walked in, and that song was playing, which is another song from my, the radio and of my childhood.
Sure. From
those faraway days. And I felt my heart start to race, and I thought, okay, just don't blow the tempos. Don't get up there and play everything 5-10 clicks too fast because you're an excitable boy.
Yeah.
So it was again, I'll remember that night for a myriad of reasons for, forever.
Yeah. What a thrill. I mean, what a thrill. And so, well, back to my original question. I mean, when John died, I mean, I just never heard anybody address the feeling in the band, I guess, how that affected. I mean, that had to be a hard time when. Well,
it was unexpected, I suppose, and it was a shock, and especially because Chuck Panazzo, the bass player, John was his twin brother.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
I mean, so it was family. It was more than just the dude who played drums or a guy of history. It was literally someone's twin brother.
Yes.
It was. Well, whenever someone dies, even in that case, I never met the man. It's the memory is sort of shrouded with a little bit of, you know that it's like someone pours a bucket of Novocaine over you, if like you grieve or something like that. There's that weird dream-like foggy thing that shrouds everything when something that happens, and that's kind of how it is in my mind, because I was the only person that wasn't there. You know what I mean? I am the new thing. You know, and all the stories that I heard about John is everyone said that he was the funniest guy that they'd ever met, and he was, you know, a prankster and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sure that's maybe how Kenny Jones felt a little bit, replacing a personality like Keith. That's how it struck me, and I thought, boy, you know, I'm going to have to tread lightly here because I'm not sure. I know it goes deep, but I don't know how deep this all goes. This is a very new experience for me, and a colossal new experience wrapped up inside this new experience.
Sure.
And I remember we were in New York City, and we were staying at some very fancy hotel on the Upper East Side. And I came back. I had a few drinks with a good buddy of mine that lived there, and I walked back to the hotel, and I kind of look in the bar, and I can see everybody but me, like, sitting there having drinks. And I thought right then and there, I could sort of just go up to my room. I'm not sure if I'm welcome there, or do I go make my presence known?
Right.
And I chose the latter.
Right.
And I went down there and into the bar, and I'm glad I did, because they brought over a chair for me, and they told stories, and they laughed, and they cried, and laughed again, you know, and they all went around telling their favorite John stories, all laughed. And I think that was a wise choice, and I think it bonded me to them in that moment, instead of me feeling like an outsider, and maybe I'm not welcome, I'm just going to piss off to my room. I think that's something that, you know, maybe helped solidify
that you were a part of
over 20 years.
That you were a part of the group. Yeah, I mean, that's I probably would have slunk up to my room and, you know, felt, God, I don't belong. That was very brave of you, and
that would have been the easier choice.
Yeah, that would have been the easier choice. That was very brave. And it probably made all the difference in the world. So, taking the hard road, good for you. Good for you. So I always wondered about that, because those are really sensitive situations, and you know, really sensitive, and you know, and by the same token, it was a happy time for you in a lot of ways, because here you were in this new wonderful band, and, you know, experiencing something for the first time, this amazing concertizing, and so, you know, you probably had very mixed emotions. So, you know,
and also I was young. I mean, as much as experience that I did have, or as experience that I would like to think that I was at that age. You know, I think I was 26, or I just turned 27 or something like that. And I'm dealing with, you know, guys that, you know, sold 40 million records long before I ever came along. So and each one of them are highly intelligent, witty, smart people. So it was, you know, there's not a you know, guy in the whole band.
Right.
They're all sharp, you know, witty people.
Right.
Yeah, it was the whole thing was it was alien to me.
Yeah.
You know, it was a colossal learning experience on so many levels.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you grew up very quickly. So
you had to.
Yeah. So on that note, we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back with Todd. Hi, this is Robin Flans from Robin Flans Drummer Interviews. Please be sure to check out RobinFlansDrummerInterviews.com, where you can find some of my classic interviews, such as Jeff Porcaro, Vinnie Colaiuta, Ringo Starr, and Carlos Vega, and many, many more. Again, that's RobinFlansDrummerInterviews.com. So, we're back, and you should check out, these interviews are actually free, and they're also up on my website. And And it would be good if you checked out those classic interviews, because I'll tell you what, it's way different than reading them flat on the paper in black and white. They're a lot of fun to listen to. So back with Todd, and Todd, so what do you think that STYX actually requires of you as a drummer, and how have you kept it fresh through the years?
Well, I think that what they require of me is to, for one, to keep them from spinning off the planet. So I kind of have to have it's like a chariot driver. I got everyone sort of rein everybody in and kind of keep it together. Be supportive of the songs, shape the songs, give them energy and give them life. This sort of, that's a great question because it ties into your second part there. The way to keep this music, or any music really, exciting, even when you're doing it time and time and time and time again, and you could easily slip into the what I call the Groundhog Day effect, where it just feels like, didn't we just play this song? Are we playing this twice? No. It's just you're just finishing up 100 shows in a row. Is that the music has to become reborn, sort of, each time you play it. And you have to really rely on looking at the audience and any difference in the way the venue sounds compared to the night before that. And see how excited people are that they're there, and you're in the privileged position of playing music that means so much to them, even though I had nothing to do with its creation. But I'm part of that living organism now because that music does come alive to you.
Yep.
So that is something that we sort of all, that philosophy we sort of naturally share and we're all in agreement with when we play. The great thing about STYX is that there's not one guy on that stage that ever phones it in or ever has a night where it's like they're looking at their watch and they don't care.
Right.
They will leave it all on the stage, whether we're playing in some shitty hot place in some festival in Nebraska or we're on stage in New York City. It doesn't matter. And that's very inspiring for me, being some 20 years their junior. That is their work ethic. But sort of getting back to like the music coming alive, so like something that was important for me to do, even though there's really not much, really any examples of it because it was the pre-YouTube age. But when I did Brian Wilson's first solo tour in 1999, there's the sort of Two Little Legs, I knew that songs like Fun, Fun, Fun and Surfin' USA or, I Get Around, whatever, were played literally millions and millions of times by every wedding band, every bar band, every, whatever, people learning how to play instruments in their garage. I mean, these were played millions and millions of times ad nauseum to death. What would make this different and make this special now that we're playing this, other than the fact that, oh my God, that's Brian Wilson, the guy who wrote the songs,
right?
Who's there live and in the flesh and, playing and singing. So when I would play those songs, man, I would really try to put, some serious power under the hood of that engine, and it had to be, and the songs had to feel like, yeah, we're in the car gonna see some chicks and we're going to the beach. Yeah, God damn it, yeah. It had to feel exciting like that.
Oh, I just felt that.
If I just played dum ga ga dum ga dum ga 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 ga, it could seem like a bar band or a wedding band. They're just playing this to get through this. They're getting through this. We got to play this goddamn song. So we're just getting through the job. But I knew that it was my job, along with the band, to agree upon this notion that here's like Surfin' USA. This is the real genuine article live in front of your eyes. And this is the song that you had your first kiss to, or that you decided with, your high school dream girl, whatever. Like, this shit is alive and it's real and it's enveloping you. That's what makes this special.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you just
and that's why you paid $100 or whatever to be here, to have that feeling properly delivered to you.
You just brought me there. That was perfect. That was the shit.
Right
on. Yeah. And so and I guess that's the way it should always be. I mean, and it's the same with all those great hits that STYX performs, because people come there wanting to hear that music that means, that has meant so much to them growing up, or, that they shared their first kiss to, or whatever,
And that's a privilege to be a part of it, especially in lieu of the fact that I had nothing to do with being there in the first place. I'm fortunate to, that the stars aligned, and I'm there for the ride. But when I look out and I see what this music means to people, I don't take myself seriously at all, but I take that, deadly serious.
Sure.
That first tour, we ended the last song of the encore was The Best of Times, and I would see grown men and women with tears streaking down their face, because they're also going, is this it? This one tour? Are we ever going to see this again? This could be it for the rest of our lives.
Wow.
And that was, we always ended the night with that, and I would walk off stage exhilarated, but also with a little sense of of gravitas with it too. That wow, I was fortunate to help someone feel like that, and that's why painters paint. That's why singers sing, musicians play, authors write books. Is to elicit some sort of emotional response. And I would, again, backtracking to your very first question, I would rather have an emotional response to something that I played, or a couple of pretty girls shaking their booty in front of me. That's more validation than some dude standing over my shoulder going, "Did you phrase those slams in 5?"
Yeah. Well,
as drummers, we can all get caught up in the minutia of like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But really, if someone doesn't like my playing, hey, that's fine. I just looked out and I saw grown men cry to what we did out there, and that's more validation than any YouTube comment or anything that anyone would want to sling at me. That's real.
I'm in agreement. So you want to talk a little bit about the tools of the trade, and what you use, because I'm sure that the people that supply them would like to hear you talk a little bit about them.
Absolutely. What would you like to know? I could talk for the next 3 hours about the gear.
Well, just a broad stroke here. Who do you endorse, and like that?
Yeah. Okay. I've been playing Pearl drums since 2000. Largely the Masterworks series, which is the custom line, both live with the band and in my home recording studio. I put Remo drum heads on those Pearl Masterworks drums. I've used Remo all my life. I've seen that crown on every drum that I've ever played since my father's last kit, which is my first. Sabian cymbals. I've been playing Sabian since 1998. Great people, great cymbals. They'll make you whatever you want. I think that's such a great thing about that company is you don't have to be on their stable of stars to get things made. You want 24-inch hi-hats, they'll make them for you. You want, a custom cymbal, you want a Paragon, but you want it in 21 and not 19, they'll do it for you. And I think that's great. ProMark drumsticks, I've been with those guys since 2004. My own signature stick, the 330W. Maple stick, very unique, works for jazz and rock. It's the only stick I've put in my hand since 2004. Audix microphones. I've always been a sort of a believer in you get what you pay for, and I'm surprised that microphones that don't cost $1 million sound better than a lot of $1 million mics on drums. especially the STYX 25A overheads. I think I would put those up against $3,000 or $4,000 German Austrian mics, and they just might be the victor. Amazing mics on drums, in my opinion. What else? I'm not forgetting a weasel bit here and there, but that's sort of the bulk of what makes up the STYX drum kit and the drum kit.
Todd, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Which is, with the endorsement thing, has it, do you think over the years they've become a little more relaxed about you? Like, I know you're a Pearl endorsee, for instance, but I've also been on your website, and I've seen an unbelievable boutique of snare drums that you have. From time to time, I mean, you're using these on your live gigs, I would imagine, right? Like
No, I'm a good company man, and I use all Pearl on the road with STYX. But any drummer that's making records, they're gonna have some different snare drums. They're gonna have some classic things on hand, whether it's a Brady or a Ludwig Black Beauty or whatever. They're gonna have something most likely out of the arsenal of their endorser brand. And I know sometimes I play with fire, posting drums for my collection, or when I get new things on Facebook, but I'm also trying to spread the love. And there's guys out there that, okay, I'll back this up. When I came out with my signature snare drum outside of Pearl with Pete Stanbridge, who I consider to be, maybe Stradivarius level builder of drums, that drum was going to come in with a price tag around $5,000.
Right.
Now that drum is not going to hurt Pearl's market share.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And a lot of the drums that I get are they're kind of high-priced items. So for the most part, it's sort of the same thing in a way to illustrate that point. It'll shy away with that. I mean, that being said, if Pearl had an issue with it, I'm sure they would have contacted me, and I would have towed the line on that a little bit.
Well, I think
there's so much to love out there, and us as drummers, there's so many different sounds and materials and makers and things. It's endless, and you could just spend so much time trying to create a palette of colors and sounds in your arsenal. And that's what I'm doing.
Oh, I think it's always been understood in the snare thing that guys will use different snares in the studio. I think that's always been understood.
I referenced that because years ago, I think Buddy Rich had done an interview with Modern Drummer, and I guess he was having some sort of a difficulty with Sucherman because I guess one of the reps came to his show and he was using a 5 snare drum on the kit.
Oh.
So I guess.
Well, maybe live. It's not so cool, but definitely.
Check this out. If anyone is questioning my loyalty to Pearl, if there's anyone from Pearl listening, I can remind them of when we did the Cyclorama record. I wanted my Pearl Masterworks kit to be the kit on that record, and so therefore there was a full semi truck that drove across country with a guy who had to eat, who delivered the drums from, I think, Chicago to Los Angeles at Capitol, so I could use those drums. Sure, I could have called the drum doctor Ross Garfield and had whatever delivered, but I wanted that kit. And so I think that speaks volumes of the length that we went to make sure that happened.
Wow.
And can I ask you about your kit? Because it's a large kit. I mean, 2 bass drums, multiple tom-toms. I think you have a gong drum on the kit.
I do.
Well.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful, but I'm just curious, how long did it take you to come up with those settings, those height adjustments, and how do you replicate that? I mean, everything's marked off, all the hardware's marked off, I guess. Every time you set up, it's always exactly the same?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, for starters, I'm very fortunate that I have a drum tech whose job it is to look after me, and he's been my guy for 15 years, which is that's a remarkable feat in and of itself. And so I'm in the fortunate position where everything's on the rack. I come in. I don't have to check them. I don't have to tune them. I know that everything is 100%. And I never take for granted the fact that I get to walk off stage. And I don't have to tear down the drums and load them into a car and drive home. He, again, takes care of the gear. So it's really something that the setup came to be over time, but it's remained largely the same because idiosyncratically, this is correct gear for this music.
Right.
This is not a one up and two down type of kit situation. This is not a John Bonham kit situation. This music was created on a big drum set with multiple toms and 2 bass drums and lots of cymbals, and so this is a very, like I said, it's a correct template to play this music correctly.
How if I hope I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't for a little bit Kenny Aronoff sub for you on the STYX gig?
Kenny came in twice. In 2008, I had accepted the invitation to play at the Modern Drummer Festival, which was, a high honor. In many ways, that was sort of like the Academy Awards for drummers, so to speak. And then all of a sudden, with 3 months to go, they got like a corporate show, and they were going to do another show. And I said, I can't bail on this, guys. You can't do this to me. If you say yes to these gigs, I'm talking to management here. If you say yes to these gigs, you're going to have to do it with someone else. And so, so management called Kenny because we'd just done some charity thing and he was there and blah, blah, blah. So, Kenny filled in for me then. And then in 2014, in February, my wife and I were expecting a baby daughter. And all of a sudden, the baby daughter came 3.5 weeks early.
Uh-oh.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully, Kenny, who's, the consummate professional and had charted out all the songs and had kept all his charts.
Oh, yes, he does that. Yep.
Do 3 shows for me. And so it worked out perfectly. He was available to do it. He came in, made the gigs happen. I was able to, be at the birth of my daughter. And, and happily ever after, I suppose.
Speaking of that, I wanted to ask you, I know you're on the road a lot, but you've still managed to do some other projects, like with your wife, Taylor Mills, and, of course, produce the best project of all, your beautiful daughter, whose pictures I love seeing.
Thank you.
So, you've managed to, and you're on the road a lot. So, and you could, like I said in the intro, you could just, sort of chill out on the days off. So, but you choose not to. You do these things. So, why? Why?
Well, that's a really good question, and to be, really sort of frank about it. I think that when you come from a situation where there's financial difficulties or, kind of a family of divorce and then there's some hard times, it's easy to feel like it could be like that again very easily because all of a sudden everything was fine and now everything's not fine. I think there's part of me that's driven to when I see time off, okay, there's other things I can be doing here.
Right.
I get nervous. It's very hard for me to truly sit back and relax. Or, if we're taking a vacation or something, yes, I'm very, very much capable of putting my sand in the toes and having a pina colada.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't tap into that same feeling sitting at my kitchen table, looking at, there's 13 days here in 2 months that there's one break.
Yeah.
And it's nice to when I get asked to do something. I hate saying no.
Yeah.
Because most of the things that I do get asked to do, I'm unable to do them because I'm working.
Right.
And I appreciate the tenacity and the patience of a couple different people that have been asking me to do things. Glenn Noyes at Guitar Center has been asking me to play the drum off for probably 6-7 years. Steve Orkin's been asking me to do the drum fantasy camp for 6, 7, 8 years. There's a lot of things I'm never able to do.
Right.
And one day I hope to.
Yes.
So when someone asks, hey, can you come to Prague and do a drum clinic? Yes. Can you come to Switzerland for this thing? Well, as a matter of fact, yes. You happen to call at a time when I can. So
right.
That's why I end up doing this to myself. And the reward is sort of beyond. it's beyond financial. You know,
Right.
it's the thing in Prague. You know, everyone's like hugging each other, and it's sort of an emotional thing. Everyone spent 3 days with each other, and I'd never done something like that before. And it was sort of one of those things where I felt like I went out of there, and I know that somehow, even with the language barrier, that friendships were forged, and you know, I may have made a difference in someone's life.
Yep.
Or you know, someone comes up to me in tears and can't really say what they mean, but they just give me a hug and they want a picture at the end of it. Like, that's a very touching thing for me.
Sure.
And that's something that, you know, I can take that memory with through the rest of my life, and I feel like if I made somebody feel good or inspired them to get better on the instrument that they love and dedicated their life to, well, that was time well spent.
Well, I get it. Hats off. I mean, and that's a good role model for your daughter too. I mean, in the long run, she's going to appreciate all of that work ethic and sensitivity towards the world in general. So it's a win-win.
I hope.
It's a win-win. It totally is. And so is there anything we should know that you have coming up that you can share?
Let's see. Well, it's going to be an interesting year with the band. I can't talk much about it, but there's some things that are in the works that I think longtime fans of the band will be very pleased. We're starting off the year doing sort of a small residency at the Venetian in Vegas with our friend Don Felder from the Eagles, and that's going to be a fun time. And it's going to be, I'm not sure what the summer run is going to be, but I know that there's going to be another 100 shows out with the band this year.
Wow.
And who knows? I mean, all the things that happened this past year, I couldn't have fathomed or authored or imagined. So it's exciting to see what will happen next year. I know, hopefully, this record by this brilliant Australian guitarist, Zan Nico, that I recorded this last year, hopefully that will come out. And what else? Oh, Robin, my head is in the holiday season right now. It's very
Okay,
hard for me to
well,
think.
it's all good. It's all good, Todd. This has been just amazing. This has been so much fun. I'm so glad that you finally found the time to do this. And
Well, I hope I didn't gab your ear off too much.
oh my gosh, this was brilliant. I'm really, really happy that you joined us. And I want to do one shout out to something that I want listeners to know about for Steve Smith. I want them to please check out his new Fabric of Rhythm, which is coming out tomorrow. It's a vinyl of his solos, which he created the fine art that accompanies these solos. The fine art depicts the performances. And, well, I have a little sort of personal investment. I was really honored that Steve had me write the biography that appears in the beginning of the book.
Oh, fantastic.
So I am just over the moon, but I really want people to check into the book. The first printing will only be 25 numbered and signed copies. So everybody, please check it out. It's coming out tomorrow. Next week, I think a friend of yours on December 23rd, the wonderful Jackie Bertoni,
Oh, yes.
will be with us. And
And
then it's Christmas and Hanukkah all at the same time this year. So happy Christmaka, everybody.
yeah. Happy holidays, health and happiness to you both in the new year.
Yes. And absolutely. Happy, healthy. Healthy is most important. And we will we'll check in with everybody, and everybody should check in with us. And we're going to, sometime in the new year, we'll have Bill Gibson with Huey Lewis coming up and some other fantastic guests. And if you want updates, send your email to info@robinflansdrummerinterviews.com. And in the meanwhile, again, thank you, Todd, and everybody. Check out robinflansdrummerinterviews.com, where you can download audio interviews with some of the greatest drummers on the planet. And definitely, everyone, check out ePad practice pads at epadco.com. Anybody have questions? It's at robinflansdrummerinterviews.com.
I have a question for
Oh,
you.
God. Okay.
Shouldn't we give Todd some studio applause?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes. Applause for Todd.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
And do you want anybody to website for you to check out your website or anything?
You can go to his Facebook page, Todd Sucherman. There's two of them. Please like the one that needs to be liked. That needs some like. ToddSucherman.com. There's a little bit of a technical overhaul on that, but there's some good stuff on there.
Okay, and check out his DVDs, guys. And thanks for coming to be with us.
I got to run. I got to make dinner for my girls.
Okay, go do
Great
it.
interview,
Thanks,
Todd.
Todd.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
Bye.